What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the X-Transbots ground bite with the FansToys Gehry, both versions of a Masterpiece Scale Scrapper. I got this guy from Ricky G. Thanks for allowing me to borrow your copy. And I just did a review on this guy, and a lot of people were asking or interested in this comparison. And I myself am interested in this because this is a pretty good figure from X-Transbots. Every once in a while, they make something that I think is special. This is one of those. The last time I felt like it was a special figure was their version of Grapple or Inferno. So excited to do this comparison. As I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible. Of course, there's subjectivity involved when you're judging things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really tried to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, including getting both of them if that's your preference. With that being said, let's get started, and we'll start off with the accessories. All right, here are the accessories come with both. Now, I'm not going to include combiner accessories, right? That's not really for this figure. That's an accessory for a fully combined version of 5 robots. So I'm not going to include the backpack piece for the FansToys, and I'm not going to include the stand for X-Transbots, but just know that those are there as well. So they both come with the horn, trumpet, although the FansToys one is die cast. They both come with a blaster, both painted. And we're left with the sword for X-Transbots and then the shoulder pad pieces, although I would argue these are semi-unusable, but it does come with it. So I'm going to give accessories over to X-Transbots. All right, next we'll talk about the gimmicks on these two. And when it comes to gimmicks, they both have storage in the vehicle mode for the weapon. But X-Transbots went a little bit above and beyond. They also have the controls and the seat for the vehicle mode, and those are actually movable. And they've got the little built-in communicator here, which I haven't really seen on any version of Scrapper. So that's pretty cool. So just because they have a few extras, I'm going to give gimmicks over to X-Transbots. All right, next let's take a look at the cartoon accuracy and the sculpt. In order to that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And both of these guys are really close. I mean, they both nailed the look of the cartoon. The FansToys is a little bit more chunky and blocky overall. And I do think the X-Transbots, especially in the thigh area, is a little closer to the cartoon, a little bit more slender and rounded. But overall, very, very close as far as cartoon accuracy from the front. From the side, I think FansToys has the more accurate shovel with it facing downwards, whereas X-Transbots has it facing backwards, straight back. And then also all the kind of kibble for the shovel is up here with the shovel on FansToys, whereas on X-Transbots it's kind of mid-back. And then we come all the way to the back. When I first saw the FansToys, now you can reconfigure this to a wider shovel that's kind of more forward on his body. But this is actually more accurate, and I didn't realize that until I looked at the back image of Scrapper. It does have a smaller shovel with 3 teeth on it. I was always wondering why did they make it collapse? Well, that's the reason. It was to match that cartoon. So they were going hyper Toon as much as they could. However, they have this roof on the butt, whereas X-Transbots has it up higher on the mid-back, and they painted the other half purple, which makes it closer to the back on our cartoon image. Now they have it going purple all the way up to here, but it does feel closer just because they painted this purple and they painted that purple. So it's kind of a wash there on this back part. And overall, I think it's a wash on cartoon accuracy. So I'm going to give them a tie on cartoon accuracy. I think they both nail it pretty darn good. Now, as far as the sculpt is concerned, both are pretty clean all the way around. They do have a little bit of back kibble on both of them, but relatively clean. But something that I don't normally look at, and I don't have a category for, is the scale. And the FansToys is intentionally sculpted to look, more chunky, blocky, cartoon-like, but also just more of a brawler. He's kind of a bigger figure. Well, let's bring in Megatron here, and I don't normally bring in other figures for this category, but the fact that the FansToys is so big, it's actually the same size as Megatron, maybe like a hair shorter, but nearly the same size. And then the body itself, the way it's sculpted, it just looks bigger and bulkier than Megatron. That kind of seems off to me. You know, I do think that X-Transbots captured the size of this guy relative to the rest of the collection. So that kind of factors in, at least for me, in the sculpt area. He just seems like he's sculpted too big. So I'm going to give Sculpt over to X-Transbots. All right, next, let's take a look at the paint and the build on these two. When it comes to paint, they're both pretty much 100% painted from head to toe. And the X-Transbots, I'm not 100% sure if this is painted surface or paint infused plastic. Either way, it looks very good. It's got that nice metallic shine to it. So I think I'm going to give them a tie on paint. Both have plenty of paint, and the quality of it is good. As far as build quality, I did have a couple issues on the X-Transbots. Now, this is one of their better figures in terms of build, but I still had a couple issues. One is the shoulder pads, which is the reason why you don't see me install these for the Toon look, is because the pegs that hold these on are semi-fragile. They're actually, they have stress marks on them from one use. So I decided not to put them on. But you can enhance the look with these for, you know, more cartoon accurate look. And the build quality for that is kind of questionable. As well as I had a little breakage back here. There's a couple thin areas on the plastic. And it did show during the video. It was stressed plastic on the first transformation, and then it broke on the second transformation. There's a little thin piece of plastic that holds this panel on. So because of that, I do think there's a couple areas on this where there's a risk for stressing the plastic and potentially breaking it. So I'm going to give build quality over to FansToys. I do think this is solid. I do feel like I could transform this many, many times without the worry of breaking it. Next, let's take a look at the articulation on these two. And we'll start with the X-Transbots. The head is on a rotating swivel, so it rotates around, goes up to there, goes way up just due to the way they designed it, and down to there. I do have a little bit of looseness on the head now. Nothing terrible, but it's a little bit looser than when I first got it. Shoulders rotate around on a ratchet joint, out to the side on a ratchet joint. Locking butterfly joint gets you out to there. Rotation at the bicep. Double jointed elbow gets you almost a full bend. Rotation at the wrist. In and out movement at the wrist. Individual articulated fingers. The bottom three are connected, but they have 2 pins, and then the top one has 2 pins and can be articulated independently. Thumb is on a swivel and 2 pegs, or 2 pins. I don't like the way the thumbs are designed, but it does have the articulation that it needs for full hand articulation. For the waist, we have a waist swivel on a ratchet. Rotates all the way around. Ab crunch, really well done. They finally gave it some tension. Recent bots have been not very good on this, but this one is very well done. Nice ab crunch. For the legs, hip skirts will move out of the way. Legs will kick up to there. Back to there. Out to the side on friction, but it holds the weight of the diecast. Rotation of the thigh around a universal. Double jointed knee on a diecast joint here. I had a little tiny paint fleck right there, but overall that works well. You have ankle tilt. It's utilized by tilting the toe and the heel together, so you can go both directions. And then you also have a forward and backward on that foot. So pretty top-notch articulation on the X-Transbots. Let's take a look at the FansToys. Head is on a rotating swivel, goes up to there, down to there, rotates around. Shoulders rotate out on a friction joint, out to the side on friction hinge. No butterfly, although there's kind of a reverse butterfly, but no forward butterfly, so I'm not going to give them that. You have a rotation at the bicep. Single jointed elbow gets you a little past 90 degrees. Rotation at the wrist. You have individual articulated fingers on 2 pins, thumbs on a ball joint and a pin. I do prefer these hands over those, even though they have relatively similar articulation. I do prefer the FansToys style. Coming down to the waist, basically a non-existent waist rotation, pretty much non-existent ab crunch. You can kind of fake it if you come down here and pull forward on the crotch, which is really a joint for combined mode. You can get a crunch here. I'm going to give that to them. It is after all, it does work, but the waist swivel basically 0 degrees, so I don't think they should get that. It's also very hard to engage that ab crunch. For the legs, you have hip skirt moves out of the way. Legs will kick up to there on a ratchet. Back to there, hindered by all of this. Out to the side on friction, and it doesn't get up very far, and it also not ratcheted, but it does work. Rotation at the thigh around universal. 90-degree bend at the knee. I have a nice cover piece here, but it's only single jointed. You have ankle tilts side to side and a little bit of forward tilt as well. So because of the additional joints on the X-Transbots, you have the double jointed elbows, you have the butterfly joint, you have the waist swivel, you've got double jointed knees. There's a lot more going on the X-Transbots. We're going to give articulation over. All right, now let's talk about the transformation and engineering. When it comes to transformation, both of these guys are relatively pleasant. The FansToys, I didn't even need instructions this time. I just transformed it. Very simple, intuitive, and fun. X-Transbots also surprisingly pretty simple and easy to transform. There are a couple places to watch out for, but I'm not going to ding them again on the build quality. The transformation is actually very straightforward and simple, with exception to a couple little places. So I'm going to give them a tie on transformation. Both of them pretty straightforward and into both modes, both the vehicle and the combined mode. When it comes to engineering, there's some things that I really like that X-Transbots did. So for example, I like the idea of having a more realistic vehicle, and they're able to get a Toon accurate robot mode, especially if you use these, but then a more vehicle accurate or toy accurate vehicle. And I like that. I like the transition. And we don't get a lot of that anymore in third party. You know, everything is Toon accuracy to a T. So I do like that idea. But the FansToys has a much better design for the combined mode. I think working in this additional piece for rigidity, structural rigidity, and also just the way it plants on the ground, I think that's going to pay off in the long run for the fully combined mode. All right, and there they both are in their alt modes. And very different approaches to these two. The FansToys one is definitely more of a blocky, chunky thing. It's obviously it's bigger too. It's a little bit taller, longer, especially with the shovel included. And it is about the same width. So longer and wider. But it's definitely the vehicle itself looks a lot better on the X-Transbots. It's got this smokestack, this little detail here. You got a seat, you got a steering wheel, little control knobs. All of this looks more realistic, although I do worry about the longevity of it. It does look better. It looks more realistic. And I just love how overall this looks more like this actual vehicle. You have a ratcheted hinge for this, the shovel. You got a nice piston there, you know, kind of realistic looking. They really nailed the look of this. On the FansToys, it's obviously meant to be more simplistic, but I do think there's a lot of kibble and mess up here. The shovel looks okay. The wheels are nice, but overall it feels a little too simplistic, right? There's just not enough detail at all. There's a little bit back here, but overall it feels kind of plain. So this one, it does still lift up and down, but there's no ratchet. So you can still do it. I just feel like this one is more simple. So despite having the issue on this one, I am going to give alt mode over to X-Transbots. I just think overall it's a better vehicle. All right, next, let's take a look at the cost on these two. And as always, I use the prices from ages 3 and up, since they don't change them after they post it. The X-Transbots comes in at $160 or $70 in that range. The FansToys comes in at $202. So X-Transbots is going to win on cost. And the final factor on this comparison is the members' choice category, where I asked my members which one they prefer just based on their own personal preference and no other factors. And FansToys, to my surprise, won the members' choice category. And this time, again, I decided to ask non-members just for fun to see how it might differ. Because people always tell me that they think my members are biased towards the FansToys. So I decided to ask everyone else. And it was even more of a win for FansToys. FansToys would by a bigger margin on the non-members' choice. So either way, I'm going to give members' choice to FansToys. I just thought it was funny that the differential was even bigger when we looked at the general public. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score there, and X-Transbots is going to dominate in this comparison. And it just goes to show that X-Transbots, if they tried, they can make a really good figure. So your question might be, TM Reviews, why aren't you buying the X-Transbots set, right? You've got 2 good figures under their belt so far, and it looks pretty good. We don't know about combine mode yet. I didn't look at combine mode, and that was on purpose. I thought it was unfair to really compare combine mode without seeing it connected to the rest of the body, or at least the thighs at the minimum. From what I can tell, the X-Transbots looks pretty unstable, especially without the plate. If you use the plate, it does get a little better. But without the plate, I'm not so sure, especially that ankle joint looks a little loose. So I just thought it was unfair to compare them at this point until we see how it combines with the rest. But for me personally, the combine mode is going to be important. And I'm not sure they can make it through all 6 right there. They're through 2. Can they make it through all 6 figures without issues? And I don't know that answer. And X-Transbots is known for being inconsistent. Sometimes they make beautiful, well-designed figures. The last one that I felt this way was their version of Grapple or Inferno. That was an amazingly well-designed figure. And then this is the more recent one that I can remember in history that I thought, hey, this is very good. But will the next one be this way? I don't know. And that's the issue with X-Transbots. So for me personally, I'm going to stick with the FansToys. I'll probably pick up the Ocular Max when those come out, just because I really love their designs. And I loved seeing them in person at BotCon. Now I'm interested in buying them. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped you make a decision for your collection. And we'll see you next time.